Making violence, killing brothers with your riders, selling drugs up on the corners, but the prophet's here, so you better plan up. Cause the prophet's here now. You better plan up. Hey, bring that out. Cause the prophet's here now. That's right. See hanging on the corner, see hanging on the streets. Somebody run up on you, someday you never see. I got that Bible on me, don't need no gun. You got them questions, I get it like everyone. Looking like I come for war, even when I come in peace. 3 times I prayed to the Lord, 3 times I turn to these. Pop out to the club, sipping on that cup. Everything you do, I done did and I gave it up. You've been making violence, killing brothers with your riders, selling drugs up on the corners, but the prophet's here, so you better. You've been making violence, killing brothers with your riders, selling drugs up on the corners, but the prophet's here, so you better plan up. Cause the prophet's here now. You better plan up. Hey, bring that out. Cause the prophet's here now. Making violence, killing brothers with your riders, selling drugs up on the corners, but the prophet's here, so you better. You've been making violence, killing brothers with your riders, selling drugs up on the corners, but the prophet's here, so you better plan up. Cause the prophet's here now. You better plan up. Hey, bring that out. Cause the prophet's here now. So you think you a man, cause you pushing them drugs, while I'm taking care of my family and showing them love. And you thinking you high, well I'm thinking you not. Cause what really makes you a man is keeping the laws of God. Wait a minute, let me tell the truth. Life and death is set before you, what you gon' do. And if you wanna get them demons from above you, and I suggest you start repenting, man. You've been making violence, killing brothers with your riders, selling drugs up on the corners, but the prophet's here, so you better. You've been making violence, killing brothers with your riders, selling drugs up on the corners, but the prophet's here, so you better. Cause the prophet's here now. Prophet's here, yeah. You better man. Cause the prophet's here now. We the saviors of the time.
Hey, Shalom Israel, Most High in Christ bless, Most High in Christ bless. Welcome to another show, Man Up Monday. All right, so today, what is today's topic? We're going over, I don't even know. It's the dysfunctional gender dysphoria or gender roles. And the reason why, like I said, we're going over this topic, we're seeing in the media, we're seeing the challenge of the patriarchy or like I said, we're seeing woman to female dominance come to an all-time high, and they're trying to create a matriarchal system, the dehumanizing, or as well as the demoralizing of a culture, a nation. That's why it's leading to what is called the age of decadence. America is leading a downward spiral to its pits of hell because it's trying to destroy the nucleus family. Let's start with Genesis chapter 1, verse 26.
Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. And God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness.
And the reason why the Bible has to be our foundation, because when you have a society that bases the system on no morals or opinions, we have a society we have what is today where you can't even define what is a gender role. When you have the man and woman don't even know what is their role in a household or even in a society. That's why America is crumbling right before us, and you're seeing it, and you're looking at all other cultures. You have the Arab culture, East Indian culture. Everybody around the world is looking at America crumbling and seeing its weakness, because you cannot have a strong society with weak men and women leading. There's never been a nation that was able to be stabilized or sustain itself with a weak family. All right, let's read that again.
And God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness.
So God says, let us make man in our image. So man was shaped and fashioned after the image of God. God was a man of war. That's why all the attributes as well as characteristics that a man possessed came from God himself. So when women try to feminize or weaken them, make them into the image or a version of themselves, because that's what really women try to do. And they complain on the same side. It says men are too toxic. You have a term that's called toxic masculinity. And so they push the husband outside the house. They have sex with a man. They have the baby. They push the husband outside of the house. And then they raise the child to be in the image of what they want a man, or what they think a man to be. And then they marry the same man that they raised and say niggas ain't SH and men are weak. You're a punk ass, blah, 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 nigga. That's what they say. But Kevin Samuels said it the best. You raise the same man that you complain about. It's not within a woman's nature to desire a man that is weaker to her. That's why first thing a woman always look for in a man is somebody that's strong, that's confident, intelligent, assertive, that takes dominance, that takes control and rule. And you said, women always say, I want a good man, but when a good man is presented before him, she always goes for that thug, that the criminal, because they have those attributes. They have attributes of a leader. They're commanding. They're domineering. And these women genetically are programmed like that biologically. But they lie to themselves because why? Society feeds them that lie. Read that again.
And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness.
Go on.
And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea.
Man was made to rule and have dominion over the earth, to conquer. That's what men do. We win and we conquered. Right. It's a competition. Men is always in competition with one another, meaning competing how to be the best version of themselves. Go on.
And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them.
And male and female created he them. Meaning the woman came from the man. And we're going to as we get a little bit further into class, you're going to see the woman, little by little, has been trying to distance herself from her role in which she's been made, as well as her being called a woman, meaning because the woman understands woman means from man. So the women today, ever since the feminist agenda or the feminist movement, they've been little by little trying to distance themselves and remove that title of being a woman from them. And that's why we're at the talking points, or we're having a conversation of what is even a gender. Or you have bi or binary. So all these different terminologies or conversations come forth from a woman not wanting to have a man rule over her. Go on.
Verse 28, and God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth.
So the objection and the reason why both sexes, I'll say it again, the reason why both sexes or both genders, that's why it says God created he, him. Male and female, those are the only two pronouns that we know of. Those are the only two pronouns that were created from the beginning. May, he, them. That's it. Male, female, and them was assigned to male and female, not they and him, they and them, meaning referencing a woman being a they or them. She could take on both attributes and switch. Today, you know what? Maybe I feel more masculine. I'm going to take on the attributes and characteristics of a man. You know, today I want to feel like I have the balls. And it's crazy. We're living in a society of Arkham. If you've seen Batman, a bunch of lunatics with different color hairs, jokers walking around. That's the society that we're living in. To the point that we're even arguing what is gender, what is a man, or what is a woman. If you go to African countries, you're going to see the video clips that we're going to play. That's not a conversation. It's basic science. If you ask a boy what is a man or what is a woman, he'll take out his rod and be like, this is what a man is. I'm telling you, little kids are nasty, or little kids are straightforward. They'll tell you, I got a penis. That's what a man is. Oh, that's what a boy is. Go on.
And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it.
So the whole objective of a man and a woman was to be fruitful and multiply. You're seeing the beginning of the institution of marriage in the book of Genesis. Before any commandment was given, the first one was to be what? To be fruitful and multiply, to replenish the earth. So being fruitful and multiply, that means that's a productive lifestyle. Right. Today, they're producing a non-productive lifestyle, bringing us back, regressing in timeline. And it's not so much that it's freedom of choice or freedom of sexual preference. There's always an ulterior agenda behind it. And the ulterior agenda goes back to population control or to destabilize. And you can not only control the population, if you could control the nature of a man, then you can control society. Because man's nature is always to kick back, to go against the grain. That's why you have the Civil War. You have the 13th colony. You have Britain broke off from the British crown. They went to America and fought against Spain. They fought against the French. They fought against, you had the War of Independence. Because you had a group of men didn't like the laws that was being passed, so they said, we're going to do something against this. And you also have the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. Any time a government decides to rule over you with tyranny, become a tyrannical government, that's why the Second Amendment was created. Anytime the government becomes an oppressive regime, the civilians or citizens have a right to bear arms and fight against a tyrannical, oppressive government. And they don't want that. If they can weaken and feminize men, you have black men twerking. Who's going to fight against any time they implement or institute things that's going to take away from our freedom? Nobody. Because they weaken the nation. Go on.
And have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth.
All right, let's get gender identity, bros. Get the first article.
What are gender roles and stereotypes? Our society has a set of ideas about how we expect men and women to dress, behave, and present themselves. What are gender roles? Gender roles in society means how we're expected to act, speak, dress, groom, and conduct ourselves based upon our assigned sex.
So gender roles in society means how we're expected to act, speak, dress, groom, and conduct ourselves based upon our assigned sex. That's right. Because God, think about it. Every creature has its order in life. Everybody has their role to play. That's how society operates and maneuvers. You can't have, if you take, and the only issue, the reason why we're having this conversation is because it is a first world country and because of technology. Women can only argue these points and argue her point in terms of equality. Her arguments based upon equality is based upon her freedom and society already being built up and her lack of jobs, because men usually control, I'll say, the workforce in terms of construction, controls, STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. These are more the masculine jobs, dealing with things that are more heavy lifting. So, and today now you have computers, you got things, you have TikTok, you have a lot of people who make money off of TikTok, they can make money off of YouTube, they can make money off of OnlyFans now. So they don't really need a man as much in terms of financially. So they say, okay, I don't really need a man. But that's only in first world countries. In third world countries, when things are a lot harder, more difficult to live and survive, people tend to divert or revert back into their original genders. Because women understand that she can't survive without the strength and courage of a man. Women understand that she needs to operate within her role in order to survive, as well as a man needs to operate within his role in order to survive. All right, let's go back to the article.
For example, girls and women are generally expected to dress in typically feminine ways and be polite, accommodating, and nurturing. Men are generally expected to be strong, aggressive, and bold.
So these attributes has always been instilled in us, encoded within our DNA. When God said, let us make man in our image, it was already ordained from the beginning for a man to be strong, to be bold, to be confident. a man's nature is to conquer, is to go to war, because why? These are the same attributes God had. And a woman took the part and bits and pieces of us when she was created from our rib. Think about it. God took a small portion of us. You think the woman's going to have the same characteristics as well as attributes and strength as the man if she's just a small portion of him? God, it says she's the weaker vessel because God took the weakest part of us so that's what? She could be a secretary to us. She could assist us. That's why it says a help and a stay. Her job and her objective and agenda is to help and assist the man. Go on.
Every society, ethnic group, and culture has gender role expectations, but they can be very different from group to group. They can also change in the same society over time. For example, pink used to be considered a masculine color in the U.S., while blue was considered feminine.
Yeah, that's BS. All right, let's go on.
How do gender stereotypes affect people? A stereotype is a widely accepted judgment or bias about a person or group, even though it's overly simplified and not always accurate. Stereotypes about gender can cause unequal and unfair treatment because of a person's gender. This is called sexism.
And it's not so much, it says a stereotype is a widely accepted judgment or bias about a person or group, even though it's overly simplified and not always accurate. Stereotypes about gender can cause unequal and unfair treatment. Never, and this is the argument females, I'll say the feminists or the feminist movement that they're trying to bring up, that men look down on women or oppress women because they're weaker or they tend to be weaker. They say, oh, don't call women weak. Are they not weaker than us? Yes. If you look at the biological makeup, they're not built the same as women. Men have stronger shoulders. Why? So they can bear things, bear burdens. Women have bigger hips. Why? So they can bear children. This is different. That's a part of their genetic makeup. That's why men built societies, built the world that women live in so that they can be comfortable, the same world that they live in, that they're comfortable with, the same technology that they make money off of, is the same things that men built that they complain about. We give them something to complain about because why? We made it too comfortable for them to the point that they don't have to do anything. We said, you know what? You staying at home, you got to wash. We're going to make machines so that you don't have to wash clothes. It's never enough. Because why? The true nature, within the woman, the deep intent is to be like the man and the man to be of her. It goes back to the garden at the end of the day. Let's go down.
There are 4 basic kinds of gender stereotypes. Personality traits. For example, women are often expected to be accommodating and emotional, while men are usually expected to be self-confident and aggressive.
Yeah. And don't women want an aggressive and a self-confident man? And they will always lie to you, says, oh, we want men to be more in touch with the femininity. We want men to be vulnerable and intact with their emotions. Men should be in tune with themselves. It's all right to cry sometimes, but when that man complains, he's in tune, and he's vulnerable, and he begins to cry, the woman says, you're a weak-ass nigga. Oh, you're a BH. You're a BAM. And they don't respect him. Yeah, they'll use this for his resources, but they'll sleep right behind his back to the person that's a lot stronger that casts him away. You notice women always go after the brothers that's more disrespectful, like that don't pay them any attention. They're biologically programmed that way. That's why it says, for women, for example, women are often expected to be accommodated and emotional. You know why they're expected to be accommodating and emotional? Because they bear children. There's a chemical called oxytocin, right? Yeah, oxytocin. And it's called the bonding chemical or the love chemical. And it bonds, and the reason why, like I said, the Most High had oxytocin, which is the bonding chemical in a woman, is because why? When a woman gives birth, in order for that child to be nourished, properly nourished and loved, there has to be a bond between a mother and the child. And a woman has to, in that same bond the woman has towards a man. So a woman has certain attributes and traits because why? She has to bring up and raise children. Go on. Let's go on.
Domestic behaviors. For example, some people expect that women will take care of the children, cook and clean the home, while men take care of finances, work on the car, and do the home repairs.
So Think about it. Who wants to work? Who likes to work here? To me, that's a good deal. To me, that sounds almost like a retirement plan. So you telling me only thing I have to do really is make sure I guide the house, cook, clean, and take care of the children, and make sure my husband is accommodated for, and then all my bills will be paid for? To me, that sounds like a very good deal. Why would you want to go out into the world, work for somebody, which is similar to working for your husband? It's no difference if you look at it. You going to work for another man, a CEO, it's the same thing. You're getting paid by the CEO to what? To take care of your house expenses, your rent, your clothing, as well as your food. So either way you look at it, you're working for somebody. The problem is women don't want to subject themselves. They want that freedom and liberty to receive the finances and have their own way, to be independent. So that's why women are fighting to have independence within a household, because they want the freedom, they want the finances with the freedom, without the submission. But everybody submits to somebody. Now go on.
Occupations. Some people are quick to assume that teachers and nurses are women.
Yeah, which is rightfully so. If you look at the occupations, I used to be a teacher, and guess what? I had to leave. You know why? Because it's not natural for a man to be a teacher in an environment we have to deal with children. Men are less patient. Exactly, and men are more, like, I'll say, let me be careful. Yes, men are more stern, and they're less tolerant. Women are more nurturing, more patient, and more loving and caring, where men really don't deal with too much. I mean, they'll write you off if you don't listen, or they'll deal with you in terms of discipline you, or even could get to the point where they can lay hands on you if they feel that they're not getting their point across. That's how men are. Men are naturally aggressive. Go on.
And that pilots, doctors, and engineers are men. Mm-hmm. Physical appearance. For example, women are expected to be thin and graceful, while men are expected to be tall and muscular. And in women also, you ask a woman, what do they want? What do they look for in a man? And what's the first thing they always say? I want a man that's tall, dark, and handsome. But when it comes to a man, what do he look for in the traits in a woman? He says, I want a woman that's slim and that's feminine and beautiful. And she said, oh, that's body shaming. Yeah, you got to take me as I am. So a woman can have her expectations, but when it comes to a man's expectations, oh, no, we got to accept you for who you are. We got to take you as you are. We got to fight for you, and then fighting for you for take you as you are, we got to pay for you. So think about it. Don't you think that if we're going to provide and support and protect, don't you think we should get an equal trade out of the deal? So the equal trade is, listen, if we're going to do all these things, I mean, if I'm going to lay down my life for you, I'm going to put everything on the line. Go work these hard hours. Go to school. Go to school for half my life. Study. Get a career. And get a career not so much for myself, because, man, we don't need too much to survive. Get a career, a high-paying job, so that I can get the house that you desire to raise my children in. And make sure that you're comfortable. At least I could get a nice home-cooked meal. I could get femininity as well as a well-shaped body. You know why? These are the basics that men require, and nothing else really. Men are very simple, but they say that, oh, this is stereotypes that society places on women and men. That women got to fill this narrative as well as men got to fill that narrative. Go on. Men and women are also expected to dress and groom in ways that are stereotypical to their gender. Mm-hmm. Men wearing pants and short hairstyles, women wearing dresses and makeup.
And this is all an attack against the Bible, because the Bible tells us that a man's attire is pants and a woman's attire is dress. So the standards was always set from the beginning, from when we came out of Egypt, and this is an attack against the patriarchy, and this is an attack against the family unit, because God, there's a spirit in clothing, and they know that. That's why why do you think they keep on pushing in the media, or they push in the entertainment industry for men to be more feminine and wear dresses? You have Harry Styles, you have Lil Wayne, you have Will Smith, you have all types. You have Jaden, what is his name? Jaden Smith wearing dresses. Tyler Perry, Martin Lawrence, Jamie Foxx, Kid Cudi. And they're pushing it, and even they tried it with Dave Chappelle. But that's a narrative. If it's supposed to be natural, if a man's naturally supposed to, and they say that these are different, these society places people on boxes. This is all based upon social construct. No, this is based upon creatism. God created us this way. He created a man to be masculine, and he put masculine attire on men and women to be feminine because why? Their clothing is in tune with their nature. And that's how God made it. And that's why when women wear pants, a masculine spirit come on them. And when a woman wants to be more closer to a man, how does she alter herself? She changes herself into masculine appearance. Dykes primarily wear masculine clothing because clothing dictates your characteristics as well as your nature. And that's what they know. When you put a dress on a man, what does he naturally do? They act more feminine. And that's why they play out in these movies. They become feminine because why? Clothing is associated with a woman's or a man's characteristics trait. Let's go on.
Hyperfemininity, you gotta move that up. Hyperfemininity is the exaggeration of stereotype behavior that's believed to be feminine. Hyperfeminine folks exaggerate the qualities they believe to be feminine. This may include being passive, naive, sexually inexperienced, soft, flirtatious, graceful, nurturing, and accepting.
So they say hyperfemininity. This may include being passive, naive, sexually inexperienced. Let me tell you something. The value of a man and the value of a woman are different. A man is valued based upon his resources and what he can provide, what he brings to the table. And I always say a woman's love is unconditional, meaning a woman's love is based upon a man's ability to provide some type of resources, because let a man lose his job and a woman maintain them. Give me that Sirach chapter 26. You're going to see a different characteristic in an unsolved, or you're going to see a different characteristic coming from a woman that's not natural. You read that? Sirach 26.
Yep. Sirach chapter 25, verse 22. Mm-hmm. A woman, if she maintain her husband, is full of anger, impudence, and much reproach.
Why? Because women naturally understand that it is not within her nature to maintain or to provide for a man. It's always been encoded in her genetics from the time period when Adam was created. Adam was created to address the field, to be a husbandry. And Eve was created to be a help and stay, to be a helpmeet, to assist him, to be a pillar of rest. So anytime you reverse the role and a woman provides for a man, she becomes what?
Full of anger.
She becomes full of anger. That's why you see the movie Acrimony. Why did she become anger? Because why? Even though, like I said, a husband had dreams and aspirations that took a little bit longer than what she expected, she became angry because she understands that a man's supposed to take care of a woman. And it did take longer, and he should have, and he was wrong for that. Like I say, even though he had those dreams and aspirations, you should never let a woman operate outside of her nature. I mean, if you could control it. Some things you can't control, you might get sick, like Tobit's wife. Anna had to step up, and guess what? And she understood, listen, my husband, he's not able. And he was pissed. And she understood that. He said, yo, I don't want it. He thought she was stealing. He said, what is this extra stuff that you're receiving? This goat. He said, what did you do? She said, yo, because you have good works. So she understood his nature, that he's a protector and a provider. That's why it was easy for Anna to get up and get a woman's work and naturally help out, assist, which she could, because that was that time period. But you got bum brothers that don't want to work, that don't want to get a job, and they'll pull up, they'll beat the doonies, post up, and never leave. And they'll have the woman maintain the husband or maintain that man. And if after a while, she starts to look at him and say, wait a minute, I'm giving him money. Yo, this guy's pimping me. He's living with me. I'm giving him money. And guess what? You think she's going to listen to a man like that? No, she's not. She's using you for sexual arousement. That's what she's using you for. Sexual stimulation. That's all men are. You know what? I had these natural desires and urges that I can't get rid of. So because I don't want a man to rule over me, I'm going to have you just post up just for a little bit just to take care of my sexual needs. But don't tell me this, but it's going to be based upon a stipulation. Don't tell me what to do. Don't rule over me. and I'm not going to be submissive. That's why our contract's going to be based off of. I provide, you provide me sex, and that's it. You're just a tool. Go on.
A woman, if she maintain her husband, is full of anger, impudence, and much reproach.
And much reproach, much hatred. Now let's go back to the article.
Hypermasculinity is the exaggeration of stereotype behavior that's believed to be masculine. Hypermasculine folks exaggerate the qualities they believe to be masculine. They believe they're supposed to compete with other men and dominate feminine folks by being aggressive, worldly, sexually experienced, insensitive, physically imposing, ambitious, and demanding.
And this is the hypocrisy behind it. They said, read it again, read it again.
Hypermasculine folks exaggerate the qualities they believe to be masculine.
Mm-hmm.
They believe they're supposed to compete with other men and dominate feminine folks by being aggressive, worldly, sexually experienced, insensitive, physically imposing, ambitious, and demanding.
All these attributes is what builds the society that they complain in what masculinity is, hypermasculinity is. If you don't have all those attributes of hypermasculinity, or being independent, what is it, smart, assertive, to be domineering, to be confident, all these masculine attributes or traits, how did their fathers get America? You complain about characteristic traits in a country which you gain based upon a man having all these characteristic traits. In order to conquer and take a land that doesn't belong for you, to reap the benefits of the land that your fathers stole, fought for, guess what? You have to be aggressive. You can't be weak. You got to have dominance, conquering, warlike, masculine, assertive. Those are the characteristics that a woman cannot. Name me one female warrior that conquered another country or landmass. Name me one. Now, you might have Miss Columbia or certain names or states that are named after women, but show me and don't. I'm not talking about no Woman King. I'm not talking about She-Hulk. I'm not talking about Wonder Woman. I'm not talking about Superwoman. I'm not talking about societies. I'm not talking about how society gives the false portrayal of what a woman is. No, that's Hollywood. That's media. That's not reality. The same women that they try to portray to be strong and masculine and not to be feminine or soft is the same woman that will ask you, can you carry my laundry? The same one. I don't listen to those things. When I see those movies, I turn it off. Because I say, okay, this woman's kicking. You see a woman, a CIA agent woman, and she'll be in the CIA, and she'll run in a building and kick like 10 mil CIA agents' asses. I said, absolutely not. So this is what did he say? A black widow, yeah. Run through a whole army of men, and then next thing you know, she's asking you, can you lift up my laundry basket? Can you help me carry my sofa into the house? Can you change my oil? Can you change my tire? I'm telling you, it's a false portrayal of reality that Hollywood puts in our sister's mind, thinking that, and it's the feminist agenda to put something that you're not, or make you be someone that you're not. It's not reality. Let's go on.
Yes. These exaggerated gender stereotypes can make relationships between people difficult. Hyperfeminine folks are more likely to endure physical and emotional abuse from their partners. Hypermasculine folks are more likely to be physically and emotionally abusive to their partners.
And based upon what statistics? This is the narrative that they keep on pushing, and you ask them, they always revert to that color purple, meaning get the worst scenario possible. And listen, Kevin Samuels said it the best. Men in the 1960s weren't going and busting their asses, going to work, killing themselves in the factories, going to war to come home to abuse their wife. Why would somebody go to work to provide for the family, but come home? Does that make sense? If he's going to bust himself, wake up 5 o'clock in the morning, go to the plantation, work 10 to 12 hours a day to bring the spoils home to the wife, or go to another country to rob that country, but to do all that to come home to abuse his wife. And says, I don't want you to work because I want to abuse you. I'm gonna kill myself, put myself in danger just to abuse you. Do you know that white men destroy black towns just based off the accusation of another man raping their woman? But for some ungodly reason, men are just raping women, beating them, abusing them. They killed and decimated, massacred thousands upon thousands of people based upon just the rumor of a woman saying, Emmett Till winked at me. Even though later on it came to be out that it was a lie the whole time. But men came and killed the 12-year-old boy, but men for all of a sudden out of nowhere just raping women and killing women. Or I mean not killing, just abusing women because they hate them, because they're soft. No. Men naturally want to protect the woman. That's why they look for a woman that inexperienced, because why? They want the woman to live their experience to the man. A man want to feel that masculine nature, say, you know what? That's my woman. I'm protecting her. I'm providing for her. That's like God. God wants us to come and worship him. Why? He wants to acknowledge him. When we set up his prayer, he wants us to give thanks to him. Because why? That's a masculine trait. He wants us to acknowledge that he's the one that provides for us. He's the one that gives us clothing, food, raiment, life, health, everything we have. That's why it says give thanks to him. Always thank the Most High for everything he provides for us. Acknowledge him in all thy ways. Just like us, the same characteristic traits God has the same. He says, let us make man in our image. We want to feel appreciated. We want, when you bring home the food, you want that appreciation from your wife and your kids. Thank you, Daddy, for bringing home the food. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for everything you've done for me. Thank you for the clothing you provided for me. Thank you for the food that you brought home. Thank you for thank you for the house to cover shame. Thank you for paying all the bills. It's the same type of acknowledgement that men look for. It's the same thing that the Most High, because why? We were made in God's image. That's how we were genetically programmed. Now let's go back to the scriptures. Let's go to Genesis chapter 2, verse 15.
Genesis chapter 2, verse 15. And the Lord God took the man and placed him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat.
Sorry, 1 second. Read it again.
And the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it.
Meaning to take care of the garden. Go on.
And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat.
So, sorry, that was the point I wanted. So give me Sirach 7, verse 15. So Adam's job, remember, Adam was created alone. His job was to dress it and eat it, meaning to make sure the garden is taken care of. That was a job that was given to him. Give me Sirach 7, verse 15.
Sirach chapter 7, verse 15. Hate not laborious work, neither husbandry, which the Most High hath ordained.
Can you look up husbandry? So Adam's first job title was husbandry, meaning Adam was a farmer. Adam's job was to take and care as well as dress the garden, make sure everything's upkeep. That was his job assigned to him. You got it?
Husbandry, the care, cultivation, and breeding of crops and animals.
So, and you see the similarities. You see farming, agriculture. Okay, yep. Farming, agriculture, cultivation, tillage, animal husbandry. Why? Not only was Adam's job to take care of the farm or the garden, but also to name all the animals upon the earth. That was his job back during that time period. Yes, the jobs changed over time, because even prior to the Industrial Revolution, you have people, we don't have the jobs that we have today because of technology. Jobs back then, prior to the 1960s, was more laborious, was more so, like I said, dealt with construction, dealt with farming, agriculture, things that pertain to everyday living based upon food, clothing, and raiment. We didn't have the technology as well as we didn't have the technological advances today that keeps us from manual labor or physical labor. Back then, like I said, it was all, when we tilled the ground, we didn't have these machines. where you can just press a button and do all the work for you. No, we had to get the ox and have it pull it, and we had to pull the machinery. We had to chop the wood. We didn't have chainsaws. If you want to heat, guess what? You had to chop the wood and have a stove in the house and create that fire to keep the whole house warm. If you wanted food, you had to till your own garden. Everybody was able to live off and eat from their own house, their own garden. We farmed our own lands. And guess what? The woman, as well as the kids, helped you out in the deep south. Guess what? That's why you had the rooster. We didn't have alarms. The rooster woke us up. And then what will happen? The children get up in the morning and they'll do farm work. And they still do it in some areas in the south. That's why you have a lot of big and Brody in the south from manual physical labor. So Adam's first job that he was assigned for the very beginning was husbandry work, meaning his job was to till the land, make sure farm it, agriculture, and name the creatures, the animals. Get me Exodus chapter 21, verse 10.
Exodus chapter 21, verse 10. If he take him another wife, her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage shall he not diminish. So these were always the responsibilities of a man, to provide for her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage, a house to cover shame, all the things that pertain to a man and a woman and what makes a successful and prosperous marriage. That was the responsibility of the man, to provide for her. That was always biologically encoded within our DNA when God made us. That's why you have the female rat. And nature, animal kingdom, or nature itself shows that it's always meant for a job for a man or a creature to provide for the opposite sex, or the feline, or whether it be an ape, a female ape, or whatever the case may be, the opposite gender. Because why? Just like I said, a female rat, she won't lie down or have sex with a male rat unless he provides a nest. A male bird. What do you see the male birds gather? You see up in the tree, getting straws together for what? For the wife. Getting the food. Nature testifies, it bears witness that it was always meant for the male to provide for the females. That's how it's been designed from the beginning. It's not a social construct of how society designed it and putting people in a box. No, God created the box. And that's why different cultures and nations put it in the box. The only reason why we're having this conversation and you have debates based upon what is gender and what is the role of a woman and a man, and saying that these are social constructs that society or the government's powers to be placed, no, it's because Esau, he's the author of confusion. He created this confusion and to question, or to put it in a woman's mind, to question her role. And that's why the households are broken up, and that's why a lot of them are dying alone. Get me Genesis chapter 2, verse 18. Genesis chapter 2, verse 18. And the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. Mm-hmm. I will make him and help meet for him.
And notice how Adam, if it wasn't introduced to him, if Eve wasn't introduced to him, Adam was fine surviving all by himself. And it's always said that a man doesn't need a woman to survive, but a woman needs a man to survive and to provide. Because why? It was already built in Adam to dress the field. Eve wasn't given that responsibility. It wasn't encoded within her DNA. She wasn't created for that purpose. The very first woman was created to be what? Read.
And the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him and help meet for him. Mm-hmm. And out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field.
So it says it's not good for a man to be alone. He says a man cannot survive without a woman, but it's not good. So God divided the responsibilities. He gave him a woman to help me to be as an assistant, to help him in his cause. A helpmeet. Get me Tobit chapter 8, verse 6.
Tobit chapter 8, verse 6. Thou madest Adam and gavest him Eve.
Gave him what?
Gavest him Eve.
Gave him Eve to be a what?
His wife. Mm-hmm. For an helper and stay.
For a helper and a stay. Get me 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 14.
1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 14. I will therefore that the younger women marry, bear children, guide the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully.
So, and Paul has to reiterate it in the churches that what is the responsibilities as well as what is the nature of a woman to bear children and guide the house. Woman or womb man, meaning a woman was given a womb to bear children. That's why biologically a man doesn't have a womb. A man cannot bear children. A woman, and they're trying to tell, oh, don't call me a woman, call me birthing mothers. So a woman's characteristics and her responsibility was always to be a helpmeet to assist a man in his objective. The nature of a woman was to be feminine, soft, nurturing, and it was to complement the man, to assist them, to be a helpmeet and a stay. Her responsibilities were to what? To assist the man and guide the house. That's why God says it's not good for a man to be alone. For him to go take care of the garden, to dress it, to name the animals, and on top of that, take care of the house. No, he divided Adam's responsibility up and created a woman to take on those responsibilities. So now Adam could do what he has to do, the role that God gave him on this earth, and having dominance and rule over everything. And Eve was supposed to assist, so when he comes home, he can have a rest and a stay. Okay, let's get the next one, the paradox of working.
The paradox of working in the world's most equal countries. Even Europe's most egalitarian countries struggle to put women on an even footing at work. In the Nordics, why do women still lag behind men in pay?
So now, we just went over the different gender roles and the responsibilities a man, the different responsibilities a man and a woman has. And just like today, you have what is called the argument or the debate based upon the pay gap. They say that, oh no, women make less than men because of it's a patriarchal system, a failed system that oppresses women and that looks as women weaker than a man, and that's why they pay women less than men. But that's not the case. Women has their natural roles as well as men have their natural roles. And the roles that men have pay more because why? They're more labor intensive. These roles are a little bit more difficult that makes the world run. That's why the highest paid jobs are STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And today we live in the most freest society where a woman has more rights than even what a man has. A woman has a right to kill a child. A woman has rights, more rights in relationship. Meaning a man doesn't even have to abuse her. All she has to do is call 911, and just the very accusation of him touching her could end him up in jail, and he could lose his job. A woman has more rights. Even if she cheated on a husband, she could leave her husband. Or if the husband decides to leave him, he still has to pay divorce. He still has to pay child support, or alimony, and child support too. You know, the woman decides to divorce the husband because she doesn't feel that the marriage is not working out, or she doesn't feel happy in the marriage, or the marriage is not the same when they first met, or she's not satisfied, or he's too mean. She could leave and take half of everything. And we've seen countless examples of this. So women, the argument that women are more oppressed and less free. No, women are more free, and I'll say to the point they're more free than men. Men are, if you look at anything, men are more oppressed than women. Women have more opportunities in a job force than men will ever have. All right, let's go to the article.
In the Nordics, why do women still lag behind men in pay, management, and company ownership? When Bolette Restrom moved back to Denmark after spending most of her 20s overseas, she was excited to experience the gender equality for which the Nordic region is globally famous. At first, she wasn't disappointed. I definitely think Denmark is more open-minded than all the other places I've lived, says the 28-year-old, now a community manager for a Copenhagen startup. There is more focus on what you are capable of instead of your gender. But amid immersion in a culture that seemed to actively champion women's rights, she couldn't escape the fact that there were still primarily white males sitting at the top of many of the best-known companies. Denmark's...
So you notice the argument. So Denmark, so you have Nordic or you have Eastern European countries that practice, I'll say, equal gender rights. The rights between, or the woman has equal rights along with the man in the Scandinavian countries. So Scandinavia, Denmark, and the other Eastern European countries did pretty much an experiment to see whether or not if more rights are given to women within a workplace or even society alone, what will women do, like I said, in terms of her roles in the workforce? And what type of jobs would she more so gravitate towards? Now, go on.
Denmark's global image versus the reality didn't always match up. It is a paradox that many women working in the Nordics will recognize. The region has a glowing reputation as the best place in the world when it comes to gender equality, thanks to welfare states that support working families and promote parental leave, and legal, political, and cultural support for the goal of gender equality. But many experts argue that progress has flatlined, suggesting these countries are further from achieving equality than global observers might imagine.
And it shows you it's never enough. Because you see earlier in the chapter, if you go up a little bit, just want to touch one point again. Oh, wait. I want to tell the white males. Okay, primarily white males sitting at the top. So it's a read from but.
But amid immersion in a culture that seemed to actively champion women's rights, she couldn't escape the fact that there were still primarily white males sitting at the top of many of the best.
And that statement alone proves to you it's never about gender equality or even equality within the workplace. It's about women sitting on the top over men. Because he says even though there's more equal rights within, I'll say, Nordic or Eastern European countries, there's still a discomfort and uneasement of white males sitting at the top. Because it's not about gender equality, it's about woman domination. Going back to the garden, you could be equal to the man. You should be like as gods. To the point that women try to move the goalposts and they want to emasculate, and that's why they're pushing the feminist agenda and the emasculating of the man. Because why? They want the man to be closer to them so they can surpass them. Because they understand biologically the way their body was constructed that they can't surpass a man physically. And there's certain things that prohibits them from progressing because the highest paying jobs, goes towards the most physical or manly demanding or laborious jobs. Go on. Let's go back to the article.
But many experts argue that progress has flatlined, suggesting these countries are further from achieving equality than global observers might imagine. We do have the idea of being gender equal, but we have a long way to go before we are gender equal, argues Anneli Hayren, a researcher at the Center of Gender Research at Uppsala University in Sweden. I think it will take quite a lot of time, another 50 years at least, until we get there, and that is only if we keep working at it. Glass ceilings. Strong progress has been made in the public sector. In Sweden, more women than men currently hold management positions in this sphere. In politics, 46% of Swedish members of parliament are women, while the proportion in other Nordic countries is around 40%. However, there are still surprisingly few women in senior private sector roles. Just 28% of managers in Denmark are females, rising to 32% in Finland and Norway, and 36% in Sweden, according to a report by independent think tank the Cato Institute in 2018. Iceland is the highest scoring Nordic country with 40%. But that is still 3 points behind the US, where 43% of managers are women, despite the US ranking just 51 in the World Economic Forum's Gender Gap Index. When it comes to pay, the difference between gross average hourly earnings of male and female employees in Denmark, when it comes to pay. Strong concerns? Strong concerns about this disparity were raised last year in the Nordic Gender Effect at Work. A report from the Nordic Council of Ministers, an advisory body, the writers found a troubling pattern in businesses. The higher up the hierarchy you look, the more men you will see. It feels more equal than in the US because people are more focused and Why has progress stalled? Gender experts and campaigners are at odds over why the region continues to face these disparities. One common explanation is that women are more likely than men to choose public sector careers. This contributes to the pay gap. Public sector jobs tend to pay less and limits the pool of female talent available for top private sector roles. But the reasons women tend to pick these careers remain up for debate.
It's not a debate. Why? Listen, keep reading. I'm going to show you. Go on.
Last year, researchers in the US and UK found that countries with an existing culture of gender equality have an even smaller proportion of women taking degrees in science, technology, and mathematics, STEM. It is a paradox. Nobody would have expected this to be the reality of our time, says Professor Gisbert Stowett, one of the report's authors.
So now, the reason why I went to that, because when you look at the beginning, like I said, in the job role that Adam was given, he was created, and when the first job he was given was what? Husbandry. To farm, to till, and to name the animals. And Eve's job was to be a helper and stay. Meaning help where? In a house. To help and assist him in his role. To help and assist him in his agenda. And to take care of the kids. A helper and stay. To guide the house and bear children. That's how a woman was biologically created. And then now you have certain gender fluid countries, or when it's more so gender equality in Nordic countries, like you have Switzerland, you have Sweden, you have Denmark, or you have in Eastern European countries where they practice gender equality. It says up for debate. They can't really quite understand why women don't aim for jobs or roles in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. You know why? Because it's not in tune with their role. It's not. They weren't created that. Women tend to gravitate more towards roles that are, I would say that's more geared towards their characteristic traits. Nurturing, feminine, caring, so submissive. So the characteristic traits that they were born with are the jobs that they tend to gravitate towards. That's why men take the harder jobs, because that's how they were created. So there's no such thing as a gender pay gap, because when they practice it in an equal rights country, when women as well as men have equal rights in the workforce, women tend to gravitate more towards their nature and things that were more tuned with their characteristics. Give me the 1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 11.
1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 11. And Samuel told all the words of the Lord unto the people that asked of him a king. Verse 11. And he said, this will be the manner of the king that shall reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them for himself, for his chariots and to be his horsemen, and some shall run before his chariots. Mm-hmm. And he will appoint him captains over thousands and captains over 50s, and will set them to ear his ground and to reap his harvest, and to make him instruments of war and instruments of his chariots.
So the men's responsibility was always to go to war. The way we even obtained the land of Israel, it wasn't based upon the woman conquering and going to war and putting their lives at risk. It was the men that gave them that comfort to be in the land based upon their masculinity. And that's what society was trying to do, even because America, after they conquered the whole world, they said, now let's destroy the roles so that we could keep our dominance over the world. So men's responsibility and what they was always The role that was given to what? To go to war, to conquer, to dominate. Go on.
And he will take your daughters to be confectionaries and to be cooks and to be bakers.
So notice on the flip side, the woman was supposed to play what? A supportive role. Make sure the men that's going to war for the woman to be comfortable in their house and have the land to eat the foods and fruits of the land, to enjoy the spoils from war, was to make sure you provide for that man so that he has the energy to bring back the spoils to you so that you can live comfortably. That was a job, to make sure she was what? A help and a stay, a helpmeet, to help him in his agenda and his objective. That was the whole purpose. It's more so, and it's not so much the man dominate over the woman. That's called a partnership. Everybody knows their roles. The man understands his roles based upon his biology and God, how God made him. Man understands God made me this way, and with my body, I'm going to be able to do certain things so that we can survive. And God made you this way so that what? I could put my seed in you so that we could be fruitful and populate the earth. Meaning you're a factory to bring forth mankind. Without you, we wouldn't exist. So it's an equal partnership. And is there anything else on that?
That's it.
So now you're seeing an account of a man's role as well as a woman's role. Now let's go to Ezra chapter 1, verse 5. And today is more equal. Think about it. Women has the freedom to do whatever they want and be whatever they want to be in society. But for some reason, like I said, the statistics always speak, and it shows the facts based upon things that are not reality. They complain, and sometimes you'll argue, why can't we have more equality? And there's some type of oppression, and this women are more oppressed today than they ever been, and that's one of their arguments. But this is the most free society. You can be whatever you want. And in fact, women are the most enrolled in college. So you have the opportunity, a right to choose whatever career you want to choose. But you tend to always revert back to your natural characteristics traits that was given to you from the beginning, to be feminine, to be submissive, to be kind, to be soft, to be beautiful. These are the different things. That's how God made you to be. You can't operate outside the way you were made. And that's why you always revert back to your gender role. That's why men tend to always revert back to their gender role. Go on. Yep. Ezra chapter 1, verse 5.
Ezra chapter 1, verse 5. Then rose up the chief of the fathers of Judah and Benjamin, and the priests and the Levites, with all them whose spirit God had raised, to go up to build the house of the Lord, which is in Jerusalem.
It says all them. All the men who God's spirit he raised. Go on.
And all they that were about them strengthened their hands with vessels of silver, with gold, with goods, and with beasts, and with precious things, besides all that was willingly offered. Also Cyrus the king brought forth the vessels of the house of the Lord, which Nebuchadnezzar had brought forth out of Jerusalem, and had put them in the house of his gods. Even those did Cyrus.
So the whole point, the reason why I went to that is why. It shows you that God raised the spirits of the men to build the house. To build the house, you need what? Construction workers as well as carpenters. And these primarily are the fields that men oppose. So, or populate. So if you have the freedom, you see more women enrolled in these type of roles. You don't see women carpenters like that. You don't see women construction workers like that. Now, you might see very few. And if they are construction workers or they work in the streets, what do you see them doing? The flags. They hold the stop signs. In New York, they hold the stop signs. Why? Because it's manually or laboriously demanding. It's demanded, and in certain roles they can't really uphold because of the way the body's structured, the way it's made. They weren't made to handle all that pressure. That's why God gave men shoulders. Our body, biological body was made differently. Our whole body was built to be stronger. Go on. Let's go to, let's see what I want. Give me Tobit chapter 2, verse 11.
Tobit chapter 2, verse 11. And my wife Anna did take women's works to do. And when she had sent them home to the
So
owner.
to show you that there's a such thing called as woman's work. And that's why, like I said, we're doing this class to try to combat or trying to revert our minds, because like I said, society has destroyed our way of thinking. Even in the truth today, some of our women still have that type of mindset that, you know, they're equal to the man, and they don't appreciate their position and role that God made them. It's beautiful to be a woman. It should be beautiful to be submissive or feminine or soft. These are the why be angry or uncomfortable with what God made you to be. You can't operate outside of what you were made. That's why a lot of people that try to be the opposite sex or have gender change, a lot of them most of the time are depressed and suicidal, because you're going against how you were created. Go to Luke chapter 10, verse 38.
Luke chapter 10, verse 38. Now it came to pass as they went that he entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, which also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was cumbered about much serving, and came to him and said, Lord, dost thou not care that my sister have left me to serve alone? Bid her therefore that she help me.
So Martha served the men of the Lord. As they went out to teach, gather the people, she said, you know what? Let me make sure these men are taken care of, and let me provide for them a help and a stay, helping an agenda, making sure the men are fed so that when they go back out there, they have enough energy to be able to teach the people, to be able to travel, so they don't have to worry about the little things. It's the little things that women could take up that will help us, and it's become bigger. Shahrazad Ali made a statement that women have a very important role in society. Without the woman, think about it. By you cooking, you're making sure we're sustained and we're nourished and we have enough energy to be able to go out there and get and bring home the bag. Make sure that you have a house over you to go out there to fight the wars. Make sure we're nourished. The foods that you feed us determines our health conditions. You have power over life and death. You could feed a man until his health deteriorates, or you could change. You say, you know what? I notice you're lethargic. Let me make a meal that's going to push or promote energy in you. That's going to give you that energy and nutrition that you need to survive throughout the day. Let me make you tea. Let me find out, or let me research certain fruits that's going to give you those electric lights. Let me research and search. Listen, we need to cut out from this. This is more fatty. This is not healthy. Let me find out this is not real. This is the reason why you're tired. Woman has that power, and they look at it and they diminish their role, not understanding that they make up a very, like I said, they make up a very important factor in the way society operates and maneuvers. You have life. You could listen. Your job is to nourish the nation. Our job is to protect and provide the nation. It's a partnership. Give me the next one. Did you find it? Yeah. Okay, let's see it.
A long-term.
So I'll just show you a little bit of a portion of the clip, but there's one part of the clip where he was saying that all the attributes and traits that you have to have in order to reach the top in, like I said, the workforce, you got to be aggressive, you got to be assertive, and you got to be competitive and competent. So not saying that women are dumber or, like I said, less than a man. These are certain attributes that men possess that women don't have, just like the agreeableness. God made woman to what? To submit unto man. It says, and he shall rule over thee. Women don't have that natural drive that a man would have to go out there, to go do the hard work. That's why they tend to navigate or gravitate towards jobs that are more secretarial. Women, if you go into DMV, you go into any office, it's women that they fill up the jobs as secretaries because why? It fits their natural position or characteristic traits. They gravitate things that complements them more so. So also, like I said, you have women are also nurturers. Why? Because they're nurturing. You have women are teachers. Because why? That's the responsibility to what? Raise children. daycare centers. All of these things are, like I said, all of these things are reflective of how they were created and their characteristics that God made them to be. You cannot operate outside of your nature. And that's why he was trying to explain to the sister or the woman that, listen, it's not so much that there's a bias in terms of the gender pay gap. It's so much that women tend to gravitate towards their natural roles within the workforce and the characteristic traits that you need to have in order to reach the height of the work world or become the CEOs. It's a competitive workforce, and it's not that many men that reach that level. You know how many hours and time that you have to invest? I mean, you got to invest more than 70 hours a week. You're working constantly through the clock. The most richest and successful men, like you have your Jeff Bezos, you have your Elon Musk, you have your, who else? Whatever. You have your Elon Musk, your Jeff Bezos, you have your Bill Gates. All these people, they barely sleep. And they tell you they might sleep 4 hours, and they dedicate all their lives to get to where they are. And you didn't hear about them when they're younger, because why? They was in it studying. Some women, they want to travel, they want to live their life. They're not willing to put in the work. And that's why it's, like I said, that's why men get paid more, because of, like I said, the jobs that they take on, as well as the characteristic traits that lies within them. So it's not like there's a bias against them. It's this society that feeds them that there's a bias. That's the spirit that Satan fed Eve with. Give me the next one now. Being non-binary. You got the exact part? Thank you. The next article. Being non-binary. So the conversation ultimately went towards the direction was he was showing the different characteristics trait that you have to have in order to be able to attain that level of success in the workforce. And her initial, like I said, and her ultimate answer was, why don't the people that's up in these workforce that controls these companies, why don't they change or adopt more feminine traits or attributes? So rather than her try to compete and drive or to be competitive or driven to reach those heights, she says, let me bring the goalposts closer to me, because I know biologically I can't meet that because I don't have those type of attributes. So she said, let me adopt more feminine traits in the workforce. And that's what they're trying to do in society. They're trying to feminize the man and bring us closer to the woman for woman dominance, and goes back to the garden for Eve to be equal to Adam. It's the same trick being played today. Let's get the article.
Being non-binary. Non-binary is an umbrella term to describe people who identify with a gender outside of the gender binary and can be categorized under the trans umbrella term, although not all non-binary people identify as trans. The word non-binary describes a wide array of different identities which fall outside of the gender binary and can be related to or completely separate from male and female gender identities.
So non-binary, we hear this term being passed around and thrown out all over the place now when it comes to gender. What is a male and what is a female? You have certain terms of non-binary that say, don't classify me as a male and female, even though God says in Genesis 1 and 28 or 26 to 28, God created man in his image. Male and female created he them. God, at the beginning of the book of Genesis, assigned the gender roles. He assigned what a man is and what a woman is, her attributes, his attributes, as well as her attributes, his role in society, as well as her role in the household. But white man says, you know what? To attack the nucleus family, let me change the roles of positions and let me destroy the roles, create confusion and chaos so that what? We can control the man and a woman, because what creates a strong nation is the nucleus family. If you want a crippled nation, you got to dismantle the family. Go on.
What is the gender binary? The gender binary is the assumption that all people are one of two genders, female or male.
Yes, you are one of two genders, female and male. Go on.
Or woman or man. People who identify as a man or a woman identify as a binary gender, since they identify with a gender within the system of the gender binary. A non-binary person simply identifies with a gender that is not male or female.
So a non-binary person, so anytime somebody says I'm non-binary, they says I don't classify or identify with the roles that God gave me. I'm something else that's not human. For you to say that I don't identify or agree with you categorizing me or putting me in a box between two genders, you're saying that I could be whatever I want to be, and that's what's happening today. You have little kids going around saying I'm a cat. And there's been documented sources showing you in the news that a child went to school saying they're a cat, and actually the teacher had to identify that child as a cat the whole day to show you how far this is going. That's why I said in the beginning of class, we're living in the days of Arkham. Go on.
What kinds of non-binary genders exist? There are many different genders which exist outside of the gender binary.
And what I'm showing you is how far, when you allow somebody to dictate your thought process and to take you away from your morality, your morals that God gave to us, we allow society to bring us to the level where we are today, where we are actually arguing the existence of what is a male and a female. Where 10 years ago, or I'll say even 5 years ago, this wasn't a conversation. Shoot, let's go back a couple years, this wasn't a conversation. Everybody knew their role in terms of gender. We understand the feminist movement was always here since the 60s, but it's being strengthened as time goes on. And that's why you have what is called a passport movement. You have brothers are getting tired of this gender argument or this debate or what a man's role and what is woman's role, because men are expected to play their role and operate within a position in society. They got to be strong. They got to be confident. They got to be intelligent. They got to be assertive. They got to have all these things in order to be looked at as a potential mate. And on top of that, they got to make sure society is running and operating correctly. They got to make sure the internet that you have to do your OnlyFans on, that you complain about, that you make money from men, that you complain about, that pays you. And then when you buy a house, guess who built the house that you bought? When your pipes breaks, guess who repairs those pipes? So for you to argue, says now, but you understand that there's a biological difference between two roles, two sexes. And when you argue that and you classify non-binary, you put yourself in a position that there is no roles. That's a failed society. Societies operate based upon the two roles, understanding what they have and what they have to contribute to make this thing operate and keep flowing. Go on.
There are many different genders which exist outside of the gender binary. Some non-binary genders and terms include, but are not limited to, agender, having no gender or being genderless, androgyny, identifying somewhere in between man and woman, bigender, having two gender identities, either at the same time or interchangeably.
Think about this. A couple of years ago, we would call the mental institution on you. We would call Pine, what is it? What do you call it? Pine Ford or Bergen Pines? That's where I used to live. We would have called the mental institution on you. We would say, listen, you need help. It's called gender dysphoria, a confusion of what gender you have. Go on.
Demi-boy, partially but not completely identifying as a man, boy, or masculine person. Demi-gender, having partial connection with one gender, male, female, or other. Demi-girl, partially but not completely identifying as a woman, girl, or feminine person. NB, a slang term to refer to a non-binary person. Not all non-binary people identify with this term. Gender fluid, moving between two or more gender identities at different times in different circumstances, etc.
And that's a term that you hear quite often, gender fluidity. But the same woman that denies or rejects her gender wants to be more so of a man. He says, why can't I be equal to a man? So you acknowledge that there's a distinct difference between the two genders, that you want to be more so closer to him. So just by that alone, that argument, you understand and you agree that there's two different sexes and genders and disadvantages. Or advantages the one has. Gender fluid, moving between two or more gender identities at different times. Meaning today you could be a woman, tomorrow you could be a boy. That's what transgender comes on. And this is what happened. I always say that sin is evolutionary. Sin constantly evolves. From feminism or the feminist movement, you have what is called came out the LGBTQ movement. And from there, you have pedophilia. From there, now you have what is called non-binary. So you don't even have to classify or identify it with a gender. That's no different from transgenderism. I never knew that it will ever grow to this level. I never knew that. I used to see transgender walking on the streets like barely. I never knew they'll grow to the point that we're actually having a conversation, what is a man or woman? And to a man or woman that you could perfectly look at and say, okay, based upon her biological, physical makeup, that is a woman. She has breasts, she has bigger hips, thighs, and women will go out their way to even cut their breasts off. To take testosterone, hormone pills. All right, go on.
Gender queer, a non-normative or queer gender having no exclusive connection to any gender. Multi-gender, having more than one gender. Neutrois, neutral or null gender, similar to agender. Non-binary, an umbrella term to describe people whose gender is neither man or woman, can also be used as an individual gender identity for someone who is neither a woman nor a man, but does not identify further. Pangender, having many or all genders within one's culture. Transfeminine or transfemme, a person assigned male at birth, AMAB, who identifies with a feminine gender, but does not necessarily identify as a woman. Transmasculine or transmasc, a person assigned female at birth, AFAB, who identifies with a masculine gender, but does not necessarily identify as a man.
Give me Ecclesiastes 7, verse 29. And this is what happens, sisters, when you question how you were made and who you are. You allow society to dictate. You bring it all the way to the point where when the very gender or sex that you were assigned from birth has been altered and changed to the point that we're questioning who we are and why God created us to be this way. This is where we are in today's timeline. Read that.
Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 29. Lo, this only have I found, that God hath made man upright, but they have sought out many inventions.
It's easy to understand. God made man upright. He created who you are from birth, but man, it's not that you was born this way, because some people would say that I was born this way. I was born with a gay gene. I had these different, like I said, enticements or these thoughts from the time of my birth, to the point that they're giving the children, they're giving children the authority to be able to choose what gender they want without the parents' permission. And they can put it on the birth certificate. So now you can't even tell if the woman, if you ask for the birth certificate, you don't know if it's a man or woman, if they had a sex change. That's where we are in today's society. That children have control over the gender. You know how children too like to play, to play pretend, make believe, playhouse. They'll play make believe, or they say, "Oh, today I'm a fish, I'm a dog." They'll play around, but they take it now. They say that, okay, you want to be a dog, you can be a dog. That's crazy. There's no more make believe; it's become reality. Go to Proverbs chapter 19, verse 21. So man has sought out many inventions. It's not so much that you were created that way. It's that so much that Esau is the author of confusion, is trying to bring us out of our God-given race. So that why? They can implement certain things in society that won't be questioned, because why? We're arguing based upon stupid things, such as what is a man and what is a woman, why they change the currency. They create the new world order, the new religion, one religion, and take away your freedoms as they, I'll say covertly, or lie to you as if they give you more freedom in terms of your sexuality. They give you more freedom in your sexuality, and they take away your actual freedom. Go on.
Proverbs chapter 19, verse 21. There are many devices in a man's heart. Nevertheless, the counsel of the Lord, that shall stand.
Many devices in a man's heart. There's many different thought processes that we come across every day, is whether or not you decide to entertain them. That's why God has laws to bind us, to hold us back from committing to those thoughts, because once you open one door, sin opens, is constantly evolving and revolving to the point that you lead to the conversation, you start questioning who you are. And we have a society of mental health patients walking around. Arkham. Go on. That's it?
Yes,
so
sir.
Now, let's get the next article. David Reimer.
David Reimer and John Money gender reassignment controversy. The John Joan case. By Phil Gaetano, published in 2017. In the mid-1960s, psychologist John Money encouraged the gender reassignment of David Reimer, who was born a biological male but suffered irreparable damage to his penis as an infant. Born in 1965 as Bruce Reimer, his penis was irreparably damaged during infancy due to a failed circumcision. After encouragement from Money, Reimer's parents decided to raise Reimer as a girl.
Think about it. Rather than seeing whether or not his penis will naturally heal, because it was, like I said, a surgical blunder that happened, they cut off more than what they were supposed to. So they said rather than see if it naturally heal, they says we're going to reassign his whole gender. Now, this was influenced by Mooney. What is his name? John Mooney. This was an experiment that was done in the 1960s. Notice how everything that's playing today or that we're living today was prepared decades ago, and it's always done in the 1960s. But we're actually seeing it play out in the 21st century. You notice that? Esau plans things out years in advance. They're 10 steps ahead of us of how they're going to bring society to its decadence. Go on.
Reimer underwent surgery as an infant to construct rudimentary female genitals and was given female hormones during puberty. During childhood, Reimer was never told he was biologically male and regularly visited Mooney, who tracked the progress of his gender reassignment.
So they didn't tell you. Know that's abuse? When you force a child to go against its nature and how it's created because there was a surgical blunder. So they said rather than having it heal naturally, they said we're going to reassign your sex and give you hormones so that you could take on the characteristics of a woman, because there's natural chemicals in our body that makes you who you are. Men has testosterone as well as woman has estrogen that pertains to you. So even your biological chemical makeup, God made you a certain way and put hormones in you so that you can exhibit these attributes. That's why men grow hair. Men has testosterone. That's why men has different type of energy levels than women. They said, oh, they have pills. Oh, you need your testosterone levels to go up. So here's some pills. And then that's why it promotes and it pushes men to go to the gym, and it promotes more energy so they can work out to gain more strength and muscles. Go on. And estrogen makes you more feminine and grow breasts. Go on.
Reimer unknowingly acted as an experimental subject in Mooney's controversial investigation, which he called...
It's an experimental subject. So the society or people that had their sex changed, even people that took on the terminology of non-binary, are all a part of experiment that was done in the 1960s. And you're the result of the experiment. It's a social experiment that everybody's involving themselves in. You don't even know that you're the test subjects. Go on.
Which he called the John Joan case. The case provided results that were used to justify thousands of sex reassignment surgeries for cases of children with reproductive abnormalities. Despite his upbringing, Reimer rejected the female identity as a young teenager and began living as a male.
Wait, read that again.
Despite his upbringing, Reimer rejected the female identity as a young.
So Reimer, from an infant, he didn't know his gender. They gave him hormones and reassigned his sex. Never told him that he was a male. Once he got of age as a teenager, he started becoming depressed. He had to start seeing a psychologist, and they finally told him the truth because why? He became suicidal, and he couldn't understand why he wanted to become a man. He started exhibiting man attributes and started gravitated more towards the male and wanted to play with the boys because it was in his biological nature. You can't go against how you were created. And he didn't even understand him thinking that he was the opposite sex. Didn't even know that's the reason why he was gravitated to it. You know how evil that is? To reassign a child's sex from an infancy. And then when the child has all types of psychological problems and they don't know why. And then you come to tell him when he's a teenager that you was born a man. You know what that would do to a person? Rather than say, you know what, I want to continue and be a woman. This is how it's brought up. What did he do?
Rejected the female identity as a young teenager and began living as a male.
Because it's against nature. Go on.
He suffered severe depression throughout his life, which culminated in his suicide at 38 years old.
So eventually, from a teenager, think about it. He made that change at 16 years old, but decided to kill himself at 30 years old because you can never reverse the psychological damage done to a person when they decide to go outside of their culture, outside of their biological norm. That's how you were created. That's why it's a very high suicide rate to people that reassign their sex or even transgender. They don't speak about that. They'll never show you the statistics, or the most depressed people and are the people that decide to change their lifestyle to the opposite sex. It's not normal. It's not natural. Go on.
Reimer and his public statements about the trauma of his transition brought attention to gender identity and called into question the sex reassignment of infants and children. Bruce Peter Reimer was born on 22 August 1965 in Winnipeg, Ontario, to Janet and Ron Reimer. At 6 months of age, both Reimer and his identical twin, Brian, were diagnosed with...
Let's go down. Okay, right there, 1967.
In 1967, Reimer's parents sought the help of John Mooney, a psychologist and sexologist who worked at the Johns Hopkins.
Now, you have Mooney was a psychologist as well as a sexologist. So you have him studying this sexology and gender as well as biology, and then you have a psychologist showing you the human mind and how they both operate together. That's why it's a social experiment. If we don't tell this child from an infancy, what will be the reaction if we don't tell him what he is? Will he revert back to his natural gender? Or will he keep going? So that'll be his argument to be able to what? It's all about money. Push their agenda. See if it'll work in society. But it was a failed experiment, which they didn't want to tell you. People don't understand. Everybody's a part of an experiment. For an abortion, women think that it was their body. What is it? My body, my choice. No, it wasn't your body, your choice. That slogan was created by Nathan Bernardson, and people thinking it's their choices, not known behind the scenes. That was done in the 1960s too. Behind the scenes, these are all social experiments based upon the human psyche, how they maneuver if they implement certain things in place, and how they could manipulate society in the direction they want it to go. And it's all for control. If you can weaken the mind of a person, of a man, of a woman, and change the road, you can control them. That's why there's a slogan, kill the Indian but keep the man. Meaning kill the spirit in that person. Go on.
A psychologist and sexologist who worked at the Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland. In the mid-20th century, Mooney helped establish the views on the psychology of gender identities and roles. In his academic work, Mooney argued in favor of the increasingly mainstream idea that gender was a societal construct, malleable from an early age.
So he's the one that came up with that slogan, or with that thought process that gender was a societal construct. That was in the 1960s. So the argument that people think that they intelligently came up with and debated today was based upon John Mooney. Go on.
He stated that being raised as a female was in Reimer's interest and recommended sexual reassignment surgery. At the time, infants born with abnormal or intersex genitalia commonly received such interventions. Following their consultation with Mooney, Reimer's parents decided to raise Reimer as a girl. Physicians at the Johns Hopkins Hospital removed Reimer's testes and damaged penis and constructed a vestigial vulvae and a vaginal canal in their place. The physicians also opened a small hole in Reimer's lower abdomen for urination. Following his gender reassignment surgery, Reimer was given the first name Brenda, and his parents raised him as a girl. He received estrogen during adolescence to promote the development of breasts. Throughout his childhood, Reimer was not informed about his male biology. Throughout his childhood, Reimer received annual checkups from Mooney. His twin brother was also part of Mooney's research on sexual development and gender in children. As identical twins growing up in the same family, the Reimer brothers were what Mooney considered ideal case subjects for a psychology study on gender. Reimer was the first documented case of sex reassignment of a child born developmentally normal, while Reimer's brother was a control subject who shared Reimer's genetic makeup and intrauterine space and household. During the twins' psychiatric visits with Mooney, and as part of his research, Reimer and his twin brother were directed to inspect one another's genitals and engage in behavior resembling sexual intercourse. Reimer claimed that much of Mooney's treatment involved the forced reenactment of sexual positions and motions with his brother. In some exercises, the brothers rehearsed missionary positions with thrusting motions, which Mooney justified as the rehearsal of healthy childhood sexual exploration. In his Rolling Stone interview.
That's it. That's all I want. That's all I want. To show you the depths and the deepest, darkest places that these people will go to in order to establish their wickedness in this kingdom. That's why it talks about who will stand up for me against the workers of iniquity. And these are the people that we have black people that's going with the train and actually arguing on the same points that was produced more than 40, 50 years ago based upon this social experiment performed on a young boy. And to see the sexual acts and the exploitation of these children and show you how vile and wicked and deceitful these people are. But these are the same people that you allow to dictate your thought process and to gear you in the direction they want you to go. Now, let's get 2 Ezra chapter 13, verse 37. I'm telling you, stop listening to society. But you come against us and you call us chauvinistic. You call us misogynist. But all we do is we're trying to tell you what is our norm and wonder why a lot of females are depressed, or even males are depressed, because why? You're operating outside of your role. And that's why some of you have to get it. You buy a cat, you die alone. You die unhappy. You're never happy. You're always mad at people, mad at society. Because you never came to the conclusion that it was you that was sold a lie. And because the reason why you're depressed, you're unhappy, you're always angry, is because you've always been not operating outside of your natural role. And when women tend to operate within the role, they're more happy. As a wife, as submissive, they understand that, wow, I should have been doing this the whole time. Realizing things are a lot easier when you operate within your gender role and as a loving, caring, kind, and submissive wife. You get more things in life. You get more things than what you want. You don't have to force the hand. Rather demand it in masculinity. Go on.
2 Ezra chapter 13, verse 37. And this my son shall rebuke the wicked inventions of those nations.
So Christ, when he comes back on the scene, there's going to be no more non-binary or I don't even know the agender, pangender, whatever the terminologies, the different 15 gender classifications that's given today. There's going to be no more wicked inventions that man created, non-binary, or you have gender fluidity. One day you decide to be the man, next day you decide to be the woman. You decide to take the characteristics of a man. God says it's not going to be that anymore. Go on.
Which for their wicked life are fallen into the tempest.
And it's the reason why Babylon is going to be destroyed. For this wicked life is fallen to his temper, because why? America is a virus. Give me 2 Ezra chapter 8, verse 27.
2 Ezra chapter 8, verse 27. Regard not the wicked inventions of the heathen, but the desire of those that keep thy testimonies and afflictions.
God says not to regard the wicked inventions of the heathen. Whatever society, the scripture says not to be conformed to this world. Whatever's being talked about in the news, whatever's the new talking points or new conversations, we're not supposed to engage ourselves in their interactions or go with the flow of society. Go to Wisdom of Solomon chapter 14, verse 21.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14, verse 21. And this was an occasion to deceive the world, for men serving either calamity or tyranny did ascribe unto stones and stocks the incommunicable name.
And everything goes back to idolatry. When you don't have a God, you have nothing to keep you grounded or stabilized. The Bible, God gave us laws, statutes, and commandments so that our minds won't go in the deepest, darkest level of sin. That's why I said the heart is desperately wicked. Above all, who can know it? God gave us laws to what? To be able to discipline our thoughts so that we don't indulge in these different lusts and lead to the point that we're even questioning our gender. That's what sin does. Sin evolves to the point that it carries you to the place where it has you deny your own creation, how you were created. Go on.
Moreover, this was not enough for them, that they erred in the knowledge of God. But whereas they lived in the great war of ignorance.
We live in a great war of ignorance. Go on.
Those so great plagues called they peace.
Meaning the so-called plagues we call peace. Go on.
For whilst they slew their children in sacrifices, or used secret ceremonies.
So sacrifices, you have people like the Illuminatis, you have the different elites where they kill the kids, or even today with abortion clinics. Go on.
Or used secret ceremonies, or made revelings of strange rites.
And that's what we're seeing today. A lot of things are being exposed in Hollywood, how they kill kids, or you have a lot of kids that are taken or missing on a milk carton, a lot of them being sold as sex traffic. You see with the Epstein case with Jeffrey Epstein, when he was supposedly arrested, like I said, or when supposedly killed for child sex trafficking. We have many of the elites who participate in that. Or even in Hollywood, they have sex rings. What do they do with this? They killed some of them, like I said, they sacrificed the kids or secret ceremonies or made revelings or of strange rites. Go on.
They kept neither lives nor marriages any longer undefiled.
And a lot of these sex parties, they don't keep their marriages undefiled. They swap. They're swingers. Go on.
But either one slew another traitorously or grieved him by adultery.
And some of them will kill you if you don't go with their agenda. They'll set you up. They'll record you. If you decide to go against them or oppose them, they'll kill you. They'll set you up. You have many different examples. You have Michael. You have Prince, Whitney. So many people that you think died of natural causes were killed secretly. Go on.
So that there reigned in all men without exception blood, manslaughter, theft, and dissimulation, corruption, unfaithfulness, tumults, perjury, disquieting of good men, forgetfulness of good terms, defiling of souls.
And that's a part of it. When you alter somebody's gender, when you don't tell them from birth that their gender assigned to them was male, what do? You defile their souls. Because their souls is in tune with their biological makeup. But when you say you're something different, that's why they have psychological issues. They fall into a state of depression and become suicidal because why? Their soul, don't you understand that there's a male soul and a female soul? You can't change the soul of a man or woman. Yes, the body complements your soul. You mean if you were in the heavens, you were a man. In the heavens, your spirit was a woman. God just placed your soul in a vessel that complements your spirit, the way he created it. And when you go against that, you defile one's soul. Go on.
Changing of kind.
And then after you defile the soul, what do? You change kind. That's the next level in the evolution of sin. When you decide to reject your very nature. You reject the way God made you to be. You decide to take on the traits of a man, to take on the traits of a woman, become and engage in a homosexual lifestyle, or become transgender. Because before, like I said, we never really heard of gender assignment or gender surgery. That wasn't really popular until recently. Now because it's being promoted so much and our people's souls are being defiled and they took on this covering, now you're seeing people start to reassign themselves and change kinds. That's reassignment surgery. Go on.
Disorder in marriages, adultery, and shameless uncleanness. For the worshiping of idols not to be named is the beginning, the cause, and the end of all evil.
And this is what idolatry brings. And this is why, like I said, when you have no God, you're susceptible to all evils. Because why? You don't protect your soul. The laws is always made to protect your soul. Give me that in Proverbs chapter 19, verse 2. The laws was given to you as instructions on how to temper it or how to keep your body in control or discipline. Go on.
Proverbs chapter 19 and verse 2. Also, that the soul be without knowledge, it is not good.
That also the soul be with not knowledge. Your soul was given the laws of God. You were given the laws of God so you could apply it to your soul, apply it to your mind. So when you have these wicked demonic thoughts that come up in your mind saying that, you know what, maybe today I think I want to be a girl, the laws will say that's unlawful. The scripture says, created he male and female. It's not natural for a man to lie with mankind as he does with the womankind. That's the laws in your soul that will keep you from engaging and indulging in those sexual acts or sexual intercourse going against the nature. So that you don't question yourself. And then eventually you to change your gender where you can't be reassigned and go back. Now you decide to kill yourself because of the psychological damage that society fed you. You can't reverse it. Get me Job chapter 14, verse 4.
Job chapter 14, verse 4. Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? Not one.
Sorry, that's not what I want. Is it Job 13? Sorry, Job 13, verse 4.
Job chapter 13, verse 4. But ye are all forgers of lies. Ye are all physicians of no value.
You see, you are forgers of lies. You're physicians, you're psychologists, sexologists, doctors of no value. Meaning, the doctors today, the pharmacists, the drug administration company, they're not set up to benefit you. They're set up to what? To make money off of you. That's the whole purpose of the pharmacy companies. They don't create drugs to benefit you. They create drugs to keep you on it so they can get profit off of you. You're money to them. That's their God. Money, gold, oil, and money. That's their God. They don't care about you. Read it again.
But ye are all forgers of lies.
They're forgers of lies. That's why they had to do experiments. They had to do experiments on a child and they had to constantly conduct. If it's natural, why do you have to do an experiment on it? If it's natural. If it's natural, why do you have to have surgeries and as well as you try to change or cut the penis and create a hole in it? That's unnatural. If it's natural. And this is how you know it's not natural. You could never change a person's organs. And that's what you cannot do. You could probably change the outer shell, but you could never change the inner shell. The reproductive organs as well as the soul, the spirit. You can't change that. And that's what they cannot do. That's why the scripture says defiling of souls. Because you defile that person's soul, that person gets the courage to change their sex because you was able to infiltrate their mind and convince them to go against nature. And all start with feminism. You see, sisters, what happens when you decide to take on that ideology that you could be equal to the man? You create a society of gender dysphoria or gender confusion. That's what happened when you decide that you want to operate outside of your God-given role, that you don't want to exhibit the feminine qualities that make you who you are. And there's nothing wrong with that. A man loves a feminine woman, right, brothers? A man loves a soft woman, right, brothers? And you wonder why a lot of you are single and dying alone. And even some sisters, and it's true. You still have yet to come to reality that there's strength in femininity. Don't you know you could get everything? Think about it. Why did men conquer this country? To give what? So that you could have more. Men will try to push himself to the depths or to different levels in order to get what? To make himself of high value on a sexual marketplace so that he could attract what? You. Men will get degrees or spend countless hours to reach the pinnacle of his success for who? You, so he can have better choices. Because men understand their values is based upon how much they're able to produce and what they're able to bring to the table. A woman is born with inherent value just by the way she looks. And that's it. Think about it. You can work at McDonald's and the man just look at you and say, yo, I'm going to make that my wife. That's sisters think that being independent, being successful in the workforce, that dictates their success or make them attractive. If that's the case, why are men going overseas? Why are they going overseas in poor countries? That's the case. Women that don't have these high-paying positions that make nothing. Because men just want the simple things in life. He wants a beautiful, slim, attractive, soft, and feminine woman. That's all we want. That's all that makes us happy. But you don't. Okay, he said, say it again. I'll say it again.
That's right.
Brothers don't really care about your college degree. They don't care about how much money you make. They don't care how independent you are. I can pay my own car. I can pay my own house. I can pay my own bills. I'm an independent woman. We don't care about it. Then what's the need for a man if that's the case? There's no need for us if that's the case. So why would we want you? Think about it. We want somebody that wants to rely on us, just like God wants a nation that's going to rely on him and give him praise. So what need do we have of you if you have everything that we're supposed to provide for you? We're going to go get it somewhere else, and that's why there's a passport movement. And you try to look down on brothers like that, but brothers don't care. And the sisters in the other countries say, shoo, bring your substance in over here. What the woman could have, what you earn, the things that you acquire to provide for her, don't worry. We'll be the woman that you want us to be. It's a trade-off. Don't you understand that? For substance, femininity. For protection and providing, softness. That's all. And sex. Boom, boom. Give me Hebrews chapter 12, verse 16. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 16.
Hebrews chapter 12, verse 16. Lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. For ye know how that afterward, when he would have
So read it again from the top.
Lest there be any fornicator or profane person.
Lest there be any fornicator. That's why he was doing sexual experiment on a child and putting the twins in sexual positions. Because Esau is a fornicator by nature. Don't you realize everything in society that we argue about is based upon sex? It's based upon transgenderism, homosexuality, lesbianism, sexual freedom. The feminist movement was the sexual liberation movement was included in the feminist movement. Everything's about sex with this person. That's why Paul said, lest there be any fornicator as Esau. Esau is a fornicator by nature. That's why he's trying to pass pedophilia laws of pedophilia. That's why they practice pedophilia and child sex trafficking in Hollywood. Eat up in upper government, they practice these things. Because why? They're fornicators by nature. Give me Genesis chapter 2, verse 23.
Genesis chapter 2, verse 23. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man.
She shall be called woman because she came from man. That's why it's called woman or womb man. Go on.
Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh.
So woman was created from man. Give me Genesis chapter 3, verse 5.
Genesis chapter 3, verse 5. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that
Satan introduced feminism to Eve, because Adam was already a god. Adam already knew good. So Satan says, you know what? I'm going to give you one up above Adam. Adam doesn't know evil, so I'm going to give you something that he doesn't have. That's going to put you in a higher position than him. That's going to give you control that you're going to teach him, because Adam doesn't know this, so I'm going to give it to you so that you can teach Adam. That's the power that Eve was looking for, to have one up on Adam. That's when feminism was first introduced. Get me 2 Chronicles chapter 22, verse 10. So that is a spirit that our sisters always had in them from the beginning of time.
2 Chronicles chapter 22, verse 10. But when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal of the house of Judah. But Jehoshabeth, the daughter of the king.
Sorry, 1 second. Let me get it.
Verse 10. But when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal of the house of Judah.
So when the mother saw that her son was dead, she decided to kill all the royal seed. Kill all the men. Go on.
But Jehoshabeth, the daughter of the king, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him from among the king's sons that were slain, and put him and his nurse in a bedchamber. So Jehoshabeth, the daughter of King Joram, the wife of Jehoiada the priest, for she was the sister of Ahaziah, hid him from Athaliah so that she slew him not.
So Athaliah, after her son died, rather than letting the royal lineage or the natural order for a man to be on the throne, she says, you know what? I don't want that. Let me try to change things and let me kill all the royal seed so that I could be in a position of power. That's the feminist agenda in terms of the hatred or misandry that women have for men. Despising that position of power and authority that God gave them. That's always been within our woman. And that's when it came the fall of men. Feminism. Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 16, verse 31.
First Kings chapter 16, verse 31. And it came to pass, as if it had been a light thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, that he took to wife Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Zidonians, and went and served Baal and worshipped him. And he reared up an altar for Baal in the house of Baal, which he had built in Samaria.
So now let's go to 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 4.
1 Kings chapter 18, verse 4. For it was so, when Jezebel cut off the prophets of the Lord, that Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid him by 50 in a cave.
So King Ahab, being the king, allowed his wife Jezebel to dictate and to control the marriage. And to the point that she started killing the prophets. Because why? The prophets had authority. And any man that had type of authority, you see women rose up in positions of power that was queens, decided to kill the men anytime they got a chance. That's called misandry. Feminism promotes male hatred. And that's what it is. If people don't really want to call it what it is, that's what it is, hate for man. And that's why they call men that has certain male attributes or characteristics, they call that male toxic masculinity. That's what they call it. Because why they're trying to feminize the men so they can obtain that position of power that they've been looking for. That's why the woman in the interview with Jordan Peterson was saying that, yo, it's unfair. You know, why make a workplace competitive, or why have these male attributes and make it almost unattainable for a female to reach that pinnacle? It's because it's natural within a man. Man can't go outside of what he was created. Men are naturally competitive. That's always been that. What do you think men are doing? If you have one beautiful woman in the room, you think that she's going to give her attention to anybody? No. May the best man win. It's competition. She's going to choose the best choice for herself. And a man has to compete. He has to become a better version of the man that he's competed against. I mean, he has to go against a man that's more successful. She's going to choose the pick or choice for her. She's going to look for a person that has a house. And do you think she's going to pick a man that doesn't have a house or a job, a bum, over a man that has a house or a job? No. That man was competing for what? To put himself in a position to get the woman that he wants. That's a natural attribute in the man. And you can't change that. So anytime, that's why women in the interview, she tried to lower his defenses and make it seem like it's evil to be masculine. Even though women have more rights almost than men. I'll say it again, women have more rights in America than men. They have more power. Because Eve, she took the deal during the 1960s. And that's why there's a fight and the households are broken up. And Shahrazad Ali was crucified for that, saying that women have never been examined, where she's, like I said, at the end of when it comes to it, when you look at examine both, the man understands where we messed up. We understood, we allowed that situation to happen, but the woman has not held herself accountable for her actions. So that's why we're trying to build the black family or build our nation, and the only way to do that is if we build a strong nucleus family. That's the only way to do it. That's the only way to build our nation back up again. Let's get the next one. Give me black women are essential. So, Genesis chapter 2, verse 23, it says, Eve, a woman, was taken out of man. That's why she's called woman. She came from man. Now let's see what the women today are doing. I know we're going to get a lot of hate. A lot of people are going to say that we're male chauvinistic, we're toxic, we're misogynist.
Black women are essential. The impact of COVID-19 has been racialized, and gendered. As the pandemic continues to devastate our communities, Black feminist future knew it would be important to document this moment. As witnessed in the past, when natural occurrences compounded by government inaction and negligence strike our communities, Hurricane Katrina, the experiences and voices of Black women, girls, queer, and trans people are often erased and forgotten, especially during the recovery phase.
Where's the men? It's never about the men. You notice how they went through every non-binary gender. They skipped the male. I'm telling you, it's misandry. It's male hate, and it's always been there. Go on.
When recovery plans are created, they are race neutral or lack a gender analysis, meaning that they are developed to meet the needs of white communities. Black women are essential and tends to shift this approach. Through a collection of data, observation, and shared understanding gives BFF the opportunity to move in a more impactful manner to serve.
And notice how it's always a black woman without the black man. No. Okay, yep, go. Now, I want to see if you guys caught this. The X and woman.
The X and woman. We use the X and woman to be expansive of the many genders, to have the lived experience of being a black woman or girl.
Meaning the black woman is not of the black man. That's what that goes. You know, you don't see this with the white man. It's black woman. It's not, you don't see this with the white woman. They only gave that title to the black woman that says, don't worry about it. We're going to go as far as, we're going to change your gender. We're going to give you gender fluidity, and then we're going to change your title as a woman. You're no longer of man. You're gender fluid. I separated you from your black man. Now you have complete independence from the man that God made you to be with. Go on.
We use the X in women to be expansive of the many genders who have lived experience of being a black woman or girl. From black trans women, femmes, studs, gender, non-conforming people, non-binary people, cis women, and beyond, the X represents the many who are confronting and living in the constraints of the gender binary.
So living in the constraint, now it says our black feminist assessment. It all derives from the feminist movement to the point that you're separating yourself from what God made you to be and who God made you to be with. And this is the same story from what Satan tried to divide the house between Adam and Eve and pushing that feminist agenda within her mind for her to be separated from the black man because of what? Of the two, but Adam and Eve came mankind. They populate the earth, the most powerful couple of individuals to ever be created. And that's why they try to attack the black family, the black household, and separate us from each other because they understand that we're stronger together. If we have our woman on our side and she's with our agenda, there's nothing that can stop us. We have the confidence that we need to take over everything. You understand the confidence that a man has when his woman's beside him? When he comes home from a hard day of work, when she could comfort him, be that pillow of rest and not a pillow of stress. When she could rub his back, rub his feet, fill his belly, and empty his you know what. What a man would do, a man would go to war alone with no equipment, and then he'll forget that he didn't have no gun. He said, damn. He said, well, I'm by myself. Because that's the courage a man will have with his woman by his side. She was like, baby, you could do it. A woman could breathe life in a man and make a man think that, believe something that he might not be at the moment. But she could breathe something into him to becoming that man. Yo, baby, I know you could do it. Yo, you could push. You could be that person. I see you striving. Keep doing it. Every day the man's like, oh, yeah, I got it. Next thing you know, you see that man transform. His benefit is your benefit. His success is your success. His win is your win, sis. Now, let's get the clip on that one. The first clip.
What if a man decides that his gender identity is woman?
A woman has its own duty, and a man has its own duty, and a lady cannot do the duty of a man, and a man cannot do a duty of a woman.
Pause real quick.
Can a man?
This Edomite had to travel outside of the country just to get a basic fundamental definition of what a man and woman is. Do you know how crazy that is? Do you know how sick of a society America is? For you just to get the basic rudimentary meaning of words or what a man is or what a woman is and what is the position and role of society, that he had to go all the way to Africa. And it's not just your normal Africa. This is not your Sierra Leone. This is the deep depths of Africa when lions, this is the cutoff of the world. This is the part of Africa that you go to. This is the part that you see in Lion King. We see giraffes and zebras and all types of wildlife and hyenas that you'll normally see. Things that you see in the zoo, that's a part of Africa he went to. Think about it. Where you see that? These are the real Hamites, the Nilotes. He went to probably to the damn, close to the damn, I don't know, he went to the deepest depths of Africa where the Congo, where dinosaurs are. He had to go, where there's no internet. He went to there's no internet. No Wi-Fi where they can't influence their thoughts. Go on. You notice there's countries like North Korea, they'd rather be poor rather than America influence them? They'd rather be a poor country and have nothing than have America corrupt their society. Andrew Tate said a funny thing. He asked his dad, says, why does the Taliban fight against America? You know, he said, why are they risking their lives and killing themselves, and going to war with this country? He says it's all because of it's all because they want to maintain a virgin woman. That's all it is. He's happy with his goat, and he's happy with having control over his household. That's all a man wants. He wants his wife and the basic necessities of life. That's all a man wants. But America tries to push and say what God says is basic is not. You need more than what you think you need more than what God tells you what you need. Play on.
And become a woman?
No.
No?
No.
What about a transgender? Transgender?
No.
No?
It will look like if you want to become a lady but you're a man, you have something wrong in your mind. Something wrong in your family, something wrong in you.
What about if someone was non-binary?
Come again?
Non-binary? Do you know, like non...
Nobody
like
knows what it
someone
means.
You're not a woman, you're not a man.
Yeah, someone is neither. There's something else. Is that...
He's saying we have never seen things like those. For a man, he has a penis. For a woman, he has a vagina. So we know this is a lady, this is a man.
What if it's a woman with a penis?
Both?
Is that... People are laughing. Is that a dumb question?
And this is why the Arab countries are fighting to keep this out of their culture. The first thing the Taliban did when America decided to leave, they took any type of form of feminist traits in the country and they removed it. And they started any type of woman protest, they shut that down immediately. They understand the effect and what, like I said, America, the power and the influence America has over the woman and how it could cripple and destabilize a country. Get the next clip.
I want to show you another quick sneak peek. This is something that I posted on Twitter a couple days ago. Quick sneak peek from the film, and this relates to everything we talked about really in the opening. It's sort of the logical conclusion of the leftist sexual agenda. What happens when we become unmoored from truth, unmoored from reality, from our moral tradition? And we took the rabbit hole all the way down in the film. So I want to play this clip from What is a Woman, which is available now at whatiswoman.com. You can become a subscriber and watch, but here it is. Watch.
So now we are seeing kids that are identifying as animals going to school, and they are purring instead of answering questions, and they meow. And the teachers are not allowed to question it because it's considered a queer identity.
So you have kids that are going to school and they're saying, I'm a cat. Mm-hmm. And the teachers have to affirm them as a cat.
Yes. So it's not
schools
just
are like
the young
literal zoos now, basically.
They are.
I am a 27-year-old transgender woman. I am a Wolftherian and a member of the Furry fandom.
When and how did you discover this inner wolfness?
Probably around age 10 or 11. I was watching an anime about wolves and see the wolf running across the screen, and I'm somehow just intrinsically like, oh, that's me.
Have you spent any time around biological wolves?
Yes.
That sounds dangerous also. What context are you?
So I was a volunteer with a preserve, and I've also visited many wolf preserves.
Are you able to communicate with the wolves?
Am I going to have a conversation with a wolf in the way that I'm communicating you and I? Obviously not. Am I going to read their body language, respond appropriately to their behaviors and their nonverbal cues? Yes.
Would you be able to give us an example of this wolf communication?
No. I'm not comfortable doing so.
Okay, all right. I mean, I thought I'd ask anyway. I would be interested to know. I mean, I still would like to know what really what the interpersonal communication between a wolf is like. And you see that and you think, well, that's absurd, and you can kind of laugh about it. And sure, but you know, I'm telling you right now, this is not any kind of extreme slippery slope.
That's it. Let's get the next clip. You got it? And like I said, this shows, and when you decide to allow the mind to go to places where it's not supposed to go, this is what we have. And I said earlier, we have a society of Arkham. We have a bunch of society of jokers and crazy people walking the street, being whatever comes to your mind. You could be whatever you want to be. You could be a wolf, you could be a cat, you could be a dog. And this is where we are. You got it? Come on, play it.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
I think of marriage as a certain thing, which is the context for procreation, for the building of the nuclear family.
What about people that get married that don't have kids? Are you opposed to that? What if they get married, they decide, you know what, we don't need kids, I'm going to get fixed, you get your tubes tied, let's travel the world?
Well, what do you mean am I opposed to it? I mean, I think that every married couple should be open to life.
But what if they don't want to? Are you opposed to them being married? If marriage is only for procreation and to bond a family together, what about people that are deeply in love that never want to have children?
I don't think it's not only procreation, but that is one of the fundamental definitional aspects of it. Of course, there's more to marriage just than that.
And what about people that are infertile? They fall in love and they realize that they can have babies and they don't really necessarily want to adopt. Is that okay for them to be married? Because then by definition, marriage falls into a completely different thing, because then it's a bond of love. It's a union of love.
Sure. I mean, that doesn't change the nature of marriage, though. It's a little bit like I say that what's the definition of a woman? Well, a woman is someone who by her nature can conceive children in her womb and bear children. And then the response is always, well, what about women who are infertile? Does that destroy your definition of woman? And it doesn't, because you know it's still a woman's nature to bear children. Not every woman will, and there will be disease and infertility and old age and all these things that will preclude that. But it's still of her nature to do so. And I would say the same thing for marriage. I mean, it is natural in a marriage for procreation to occur. It's not always going to happen in reality, though, but that's still one of the natural functions of marriage. And married couples who can't conceive children, there are other ways to be parents, like adoption, for example.
If they want to. Right, sure. But if people want to be married and don't want to ever have children, are you opposed to them being married?
Well, I wouldn't advocate a law that would prevent it.
But would it change the definition of what their marriage is to you, because they don't want to have a family? They just want to have a loving bond?
I think this would be a couple that is...
So the point that he's trying to argue or counteract that, Matt Walsh's point is that the institution of marriage and what it's supposed to be based upon is procreation and bringing forth children. And Joe Rogan is trying to counteract that in response to him saying that it's not right for a man, or going against biblical principles or any type of morals of homosexual marriage. Because Joe Rogan's saying that, okay, what if you saying a marriage is procreation? What the Bible says to be fruitful and to multiply. You can't really argue with people that don't believe in the Bible. Their reason is based upon how society has constructed their minds or the way of thinking. Our reason is based upon what God says. So you have two different thought processes having a conversation. It's not going to come to any type of, it says, let's agree to disagree. It's not going to come to that. Either you're going to stand on one or you're going to convert to the other. It's one or the other. So Joe Rogan is trying to argue and to challenge his point. You can't, and I would have taken it this way. Get me Jeremiah 17, verse 9. This show you how demonic and wicked society is and how low it has fallen. For you to argue that the institution of marriage is based upon a male and a female and their ability to procreate and bring forth children. Joe Rogan's point is love is love. Yeah. What happened if the woman can't procreate? So that goes against your definition of marriage. So that means a man and a man could be together because why? He can't procreate, so that woman can't procreate. So what is your reason behind what marriage is? So love is love at the end of the day. That's the argument that he's trying to present. But check this out, what the Bible says. Read.
Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 9. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it?
And that's why you won't know what your heart is, how wicked it is, if you don't have anything to monitor as well as to tell what is in your heart. People think that's normal. It becomes normalized. We have a society that's not built upon any type of morality or principles. It becomes, your thoughts becomes the norm. And that's why it's hard to, when people, like the argument, I'm going to show you the argument. When I bring up pedophilia, they say, oh, that's not normal because it hasn't been normalized within society. But when they bring up homosexuality, that's the love between a man and a woman, that's their sexual preference. I look at it in disdain because it's not normal in the eyesight of God. So you have two different perceptions that are shaped on two different entities. One has been shaped by society, one has been shaped by God. Go on. Now let's go to 2 Ezra chapter 14, verse 16. So the laws of God keeps a cap on the wickedness that our mind can indulge in. It's to keep us from the depths and the levels of Satan.
2 Ezra chapter 14, verse 16. For yet greater evils than those which thou hast seen happen shall be done hereafter.
And we're seeing that. So think about it. Ezra saw evils during his time. But he said, no. You haven't seen the Greeks yet come into power. Greater evils that you have even heard or thought of, Ezra, it's going to come a time that it's going to come to a threshold that is unimaginable. Go on.
For look how much the world shall be weaker through age. Mm-hmm. So much the more shall evils increase upon them that dwell therein.
As the world gets weaker, as the birth pains increase more and more, we get closer to the destruction of America, the more sin increases. Now go to, 2 Ezra 5, verse 33.
2 Ezra chapter 5 and verse 33. And I said, speak on, my Lord. Then said he unto me, thou art sore troubled in mind for Israel's sake. Lovest thou that people better than he that made them? And I said, no, Lord, but of very grief have I spoken, for my reins pain me every hour.
I don't think that's what I want. Scratch that, let's go to Matthew's. I thought that's what I wanted. Matthew's 24, verse 12.
Matthew chapter 24, verse 12. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold.
So you're seeing the evolution of sin. Sin was going to get worse, wax worse and worse. Iniquity is going to abound, meaning iniquity, sin is going to decrease. The things that we see, even the things that Ezra saw, God said that's nothing compared to what you're going to see and what's going to happen in the future. The things that we saw when we were younger is nothing compared to what we see now. And we're still in an evolutionary stage when things are not to its height. When the point where God decides to, let's destroy this place, that's when it's going to come to a point that it's going to be almost impossible to live in a society like this. There's like Sodom and Gomorrah. It came to the point that they was trying to rape angels. God said, destroy this place. Give me Isaiah chapter 1, verse 9. It's going to come to a time period where to be heterosexual is going to be almost illegal. It's not going to be normalized. There's going to be laws against us and speaking against anybody that has those type of sexual preference or non-binary preference as well. Go on.
Isaiah chapter 1, verse 9. Except the Lord of hosts had left unto us a very small remnant, we should have been as Sodom.
If God didn't leave us a small remnant, if God didn't leave us his word for everybody that's watching or everybody that's in here listening, we shall all have been as what?
As Sodom.
As Sodom, meaning all of you would have been homosexuals or lesbians. Well, you said, oh, no, not me. Read what God says.
Except the Lord of hosts had left unto us a very small remnant. We should have been as Sodom, and we should have been like unto Gomorrah.
Everybody would have partook in that lifestyle. The very people that you thought that were strong and masculine are the same people on the down low, to the point that they even coming out, it's not even being hidden anymore. It's being pushed, and it's becoming normalized, and to the point that people that didn't accept it years ago is now accepting it. They're in agreement with it. Oh, that's, you can love whoever you want to love. Love is love. Joe Rogan, supposed to be the embodiment of masculinity, and he was a UFC fighter, arguing the point about, two people loving each other. You know what I'm saying? A UFC fighter. That's showing you how the media is able to manipulate our thoughts and our perceptions. Let's go to Leviticus 18, verse 22. And if I was Matt Walsh, I would stop at the argument with him trying to challenge me and saying, and which is correct according to the Bible, because our argument is based upon biblical values. Right. A way that God said, and this has worked throughout societies since the dawn of time, the beginning of time. Meaning this has always been in cultures, practices for thousands of years. It's only during the Greeks, as well as the Roman, Caucasians, or Western cultures, is we hear these type of cultural norms or practices. And these are all failed societies. You cannot live in a demoralized society and expect to continue your rule. Go on.
Leviticus chapter 18, verse 22. Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. Mm-hmm. It is abomination.
So the Bible says you should not lie with mankind, meaning have sex with a man as you do with a woman. It's against nature. God said it's an abomination. God made man and woman to be fruitful and multiply within their natural gender roles. Go on.
Neither shalt thou lie with any beast to defile thyself.
So now, you cannot accept one and not accept the other. That's called selective morality. If you accept one, you have to accept the other because love is love, right? So now, what is it called? Zunoism? Yeah, bestiality, but they got a new word for it now. It's something with zoo something. But zoophilia, thank you, zoophilia. But the Bible calls it bestiality. So now, if you accept a man and a man lying together and a woman lying together, then you have to accept a man or a woman participating or their sexual preference to have love with the animal. You got to accept that too. So don't stop there. Let's keep going. Go on.
Neither shalt thou lie with any beast to defile thyself therewith. Mm-hmm. Neither shall any woman stand before a beast to lie down thereto. It is confusion.
So if that's confusion, guess what? Man with man as well as woman with woman is also confusion. It's against nature. So if you look at that, if you look at that with disgust as vile, it's the same thing. It's just what's your threshold, what you accepted, and what you allow a society, the things that society pushing, and what you decide to accept of what they're pushing. That's why if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for anything. That's what Malcolm said. Man that stands for nothing will fall for anything. Go on.
Defile not ye yourselves in any of these things.
So now, you have to accept, if you accept homosexuality as well as lesbianism, you have to accept bestiality. If you accept bestiality, guess what? You have to accept pedophilia. You have to. You can't have selective morality and say, and it's pick and choose what you want to accept and what you don't want to accept. So that's the same argument we have in there, if that's the case. So then you become a moral judge. You decide what's good and what's bad. So if you're going to accept something that's immorally against God's laws, then what's the point? what is the problem when we say the Bible says this? You put yourself in a position as a moral judge when you judge somebody. That's what you're doing. You said, no, that's disgusting. But in the eyes of that person, that's disgusting. So you got to be careful. And that's the argument I'll bring to them. All right, do you accept pedophilia? If no, then I select morality. Then you can't argue that a man could be together. So what guidelines or what standards do you base in a man being with a child? What says that's wrong? Is it based upon your own opinion? Did you make that up? Or did you get that from somebody? No, that says wrong. Based upon what? Some type of standard. That's called morals. It's morally wrong. So now if that's morally wrong, homosexuality, transgenderism, binary, that's morally wrong too. Now let's keep going.
Defile not ye yourselves in any of these things, for in all these the nations are defiled, which I cast out before you. And the land is defiled. Therefore I do visit the iniquity thereof upon it. And the land itself vomiteth out her inhabitants. Ye shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, and shall not commit any of these abominations, neither any of your own nation.
It says that's not a part of our culture. Neither any one of your own nation. The other nations do that because why? They don't have a God. And they serve idols. And that's what idols brings you to. Go on.
Nor any stranger that sojourneth among you. For all these abominations have the men of the land done, which were before you, and the land is defiled. That the land spew not you out also, when ye defile it, as it spewed out the nations that were before you.
Now give me Micah 2, verse 10. Almost done.
Micah chapter 2, verse 10. Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted.
So America is not our rest because this land is polluted with filth. Get me Isaiah chapter 13, verse 9.
Isaiah chapter 13, verse 9. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger.
Verse 19, sorry.
Yes, sir. Verse 19. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah.
Because we're going to get to the point where we're reliving Sodom and Gomorrah, and we're seeing it for ourselves. For this whole society is based upon sex, 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 sex. That's all it is. Your gender fluidity, pronouns, transgenderism, pedophilia, maps, minor attracted persons. And it's going to constantly keep evolving. Like I said, we haven't seen anything to the point that God is going to overthrow it as Sodom and Gomorrah because the sins is going to reach up to heaven eventually. Give me Jude 1 and 7. So America has taken on all the attributes of Sodom and Gomorrah. We don't even know. We just know the homosexuality part of Sodom and Gomorrah. Obviously, if America's taking on these attributes, these things were being practiced back then as well. That led God to destroy it. Because you cannot have a stabilized society that doesn't have any type of moral standing. Go on.
Jude, verse 7. Even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh.
Giving self unto fornication. There's levels and there's different depths of fornication. Homosexuality is fornication. Transgenderism is fornication. Lesbianism is fornication. All these pedophilia is fornication. Threesome is fornication. Having sex out of marriage is fornication. Boyfriend and girlfriend is fornication. Go on.
And going after strange flesh are set forth for an example.
That's strange flesh. A man being with a man, a woman being with a woman. Bestiality. A man being with a child. Go on.
Are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire.
And just like Sodom and Gomorrah was set for an example, America is also going to be set for an example. And if Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed by what? Fire. God gave us a glimpse in the future how America is going to be destroyed because America is going to take on the same attributes of Sodom. And America will be destroyed by thermonuclear fire as well. Is that anything else? Isaiah 24, verse 5.
Isaiah chapter 24 and verse 5. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant.
We're the reason why the earth is, the earth is defiled. We're the reason, because why? We changed the laws. And it says change the ordinances and broken the everlasting covenant. We created the environment that we live in and that we complain about. When we decided to go outside of God's laws, we allowed these people to rule the earth the way they're ruling. Go on.
Therefore hath the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Mm-hmm. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left.
And America is going to be burned, and few men is going to be left. Jump down to verse 10.
Verse 10, the city of confusion is broken down.
America is the city of confusion, where a man could be a girl could be a man and a girl could be no gender. You could be a wolf, you could be a cat, you could be a cow. Whatever your mind thinks of, you could be whatever you want to be. Go on.
Every house is shut up, that no man may come in.
And that's it. All right. So Lord, so you guys learned something from class today. All right. Shalom, Israel. Most High Christ bless. Oh.
Making violence, killing brothers with your riders, selling drugs up on the corners, but the prophets here, so boy, you better. You've been making violence, killing brothers with your riders, selling drugs up on the corners, but the prophets here, so boy, you better.